All right, what's going on, everyone? So today we're going to be building a photo previewer. Now, normally when you upload a photo in your web browser, you're not going to have the ability to go ahead and preview it. So that's what we're going to be building here today. So let me quickly demo what we have here before we get started. So you can see here we have an upload photo button. We have this preview button, which is currently disabled. We can't preview anything because we don't have an image to preview. Once we upload a photo, then this will become active. And then we're going to generate the file name right here once we upload a photo. All right, so let me go ahead and show you how this works. So we can click upload photo here, and I can select a photo here. I just have a bunch of old thumbnails from my previous videos here, so let's just select a third one. We can open that, and as you can see, once we did that, the preview button became active, and then we have the file name that was generated here. So when we click preview, it's going to open a modal, and it's going to display the image that we just went ahead and uploaded. And then we can close it by clicking this X right here. And then we can continue to upload as many photos as you want to preview. So if I select a new one here, 11, this file name will change. And if I click preview, you can see here that the image inside of the modal has changed as well. All right, so just a cool little thing for your application or your photo uploader. So let's go ahead and get started. Now here in VS Code, the first thing that we want to go ahead and do is create our files here. So inside of this empty folder here I have in VS Code, I'm going to go ahead and create our first file, which is going to be our index.html, which is going to be for our markup. Then we need our style sheet here, so we'll just say style.css. And then lastly, our JavaScript file, which I'm going to go ahead and give it a name of app.js. All right, and then I'm going to go ahead and close this off. So for our markup here, I'm going to be using Emmet to create a basic boilerplate. And then we'll go ahead and change the title here to photo preview. And then what we want to also do is insert our style sheet here inside of the head tag. So we'll say like that. And then we also need to import our JavaScript file here inside of the body. So we can do the same thing. And there we go. So next up, what I want to do is actually open this file with live server so we can preview the changes as we go along. And as you can see here, we have nothing because we haven't generated any markup yet, but we can see that we have the correct file because right now it's displaying the title here in the tab preview of photo preview. Okay, so the first thing that I want to go ahead and do is create some markup for our actual modal, which will display our image. So what I'm going to do here is create a div with a class of modal and also give it a class of display none. Let's see here. There we go. Because initially when we load this page in, we don't want to display this modal. Okay. Now inside of this modal, we're going to have another div with a class name of modal content. And then we want to have our span tag here, which is going to be to go ahead and close our modal. So I'm going to give this a class name of close and then pass it a value of X. And then also we want our image tag in here. And then we're going to pass this a class name of photo preview, and then we'll leave the src value blank right now because we're going to go ahead and dynamically generate that with JavaScript later on. So if we save this, we should only see we have this X. Okay, so that's going to be it for our modal markup. Now below our modal, we need to create our button. So what I'm going to do is create another div with a class of container, and then inside of here we need to create our button for the actual ability to upload a file. So we're going to have a div with the class name of file, and then inside of here we're going to have a label, and we're going to say this is for file, and we're also going to pass this a class of btn. And then for the actual value of our label, we're going to pass it a name of upload photo. Okay, and then to actually upload our photo, we need an input tag here. And instead of having it say type of text, we're gonna go ahead and give it a type of file. So if we go ahead and save this here, you can see we have our upload photo label, and then we have our input of file right here. Now for this label to work properly, because right now if I click this label, nothing's gonna happen. So if I click the button here of choose file, you can see it's gonna open this ability for us to choose a file here. So for us to actually click on the label and do the same thing, what we need to do is give this input AID and associate it with the same exact name we passed here inside of the label for the for value. So if we give this an ID value of file and save it. Now we can click on this upload photo, and it will go ahead and open up the ability for us to select a photo here. Okay, now that's going to be it for our file button. So let's go ahead and create our preview button here. So we're going to go ahead and create another div, give it a class name of file preview, and then we want to create a button here with the class name of btn, and we're going to say preview. And then also, because we don't want this class to be active when the page is first loaded, we want to wait until we have a photo and then we'll make it active. So by default, we want it to be inactive. So what we're going to do is give it a class name of inactive. And for the name here, we're just going to pass it the value or name of preview. Okay, and then we want to generate the file name here. So you can see here currently, if I select the file with how we have things set up, it'll go ahead and actually give us the file name here, but we're actually going to hide this input, so we're not going to have the ability to have that file name, which is why we're going to generate it here inside of this file preview ourselves. So what we want to do here is create a paragraph tag, and we're going to start off by giving it a value of file, and then we're going to pass it a span tag here. We're going to give it a class of file name, and then we're going to use JavaScript to dynamically insert the file name here inside of this paragraph tag, and then inside of the span tag of file name, or the span with a class of file name. Okay, so as you can see here, we have all of our markup complete, and that's all we need to go ahead and do for this. So let's go ahead and get into the styling. All right then, now before we go ahead and get started with our styling, there is one thing I do want to mention that I did add to this HTML file here, which is going to be this accept value here we have on our input. Now, this isn't necessary for this project or this video, but if you're going to deploy this feature to your website or application, you're probably going to want to limit the type of files that you accept here in your input, because without this, you can upload any type of file and it would accept it. With this added right here, we're only accepting PNG, JPG, and JPEG files. All right, so not necessarily for this project, but it's something that you probably would want to add if you're using this for your actual live application on the web. So yeah, I just wanted to go ahead and mention that. Now for our styling here, I have a few things that I went ahead and imported here off the bat. We have our Google font. We're just going to be using Quicksand. We have our simple reset here of margin and padding to 0. We have our box sizing set to border box. And then we have our font family here set to Quicksand. And then for our body tag, we're just going to be setting the position to relative and then giving it a min height of 100 VH. Now, since it's not going to be a very heavily dependent CSS tutorial type of video, I do want to copy and paste in the styling for our modal to save some time here. All right, so nothing really challenging about this. Is using Flexbox to go ahead and center this, and then centering the actual modal content here, giving it a min height and width of 600 and then 400, some padding, and then for our close button here, I just went ahead and styled it using Flexbox again, and positioning it absolute. So like I said, nothing too challenging here. There's some simple styling that I want to go ahead and avoid typing out to save some time here. And then for the actual image here, we're displaying it as block, giving it a width of auto, setting the height to 100%, and then we're giving it a box shadow here to go ahead and separate the image from the white background here a little bit better. All right, now as you can see, when I refresh this, the modal is present. Now we went ahead and gave this modal a class of display none, so that way we don't have to actually see this when we first load the page. So what we can do is head down here below our modal content and set this class up. So we're going to say display none, and we're going to go ahead and say display and set that to none. And as you can see now, the modal is not present. All right, so let's begin to work on the rest of the styling here together. So the next thing I want to go ahead and target is our container here, and we want to set the display here to flex. We're going to give this a padding of 60 pixels on the top and bottom, 20 on the left and right. We're going to give this a max width of 1200 pixels, and we're going to set the margin here of 0 auto to center that on larger screen. So you're not going to see these two properties in effect because currently we're on a screen that's less than 1200 pixels on this side of our screen here. All right. So next up, what I want to do is begin to, let's see here, let's target our two divs here. We have a file and file preview. So what we're going to do here is we're going to say file, and we're going to set this to display flex. And then also what I want to do is we're going to target the file preview and set that to display flex as well. So we're going to go ahead and share the styling for these two classes. Now, for the file preview though, what we want to do is align the items to the center. Okay, and you're really not going to see that take too much effect now because we haven't actually styled our buttons yet. All right, so let's begin with our button styling here, which I guess we can do above our file preview here. So we'll say button here, and we're going to give us a cursor of pointer. Give it a padding on the top and bottom with 12 pixels and then 20 on the left and right. Give this a background color of RGBA, and we're going to say 0, 0, 139. And then for the alpha, we're going to give that a value of 1. And we want to give this a color of white. We want to round the corners here, so we're going to say border radius of 12 pixels, a font size of 14, a little smaller than the default, and then a transition here of 250 milliseconds, ease in, out, and set that to all. All right, so currently we have this look right here. So what we want to also do here is for the button on the focus state, because right now if you see this button, it has this nasty blue outline. So to get rid of that, we can say button on the focus state here and set that outline to none, and that'll go ahead and remove that nasty outline when we are focused on that button. All right, now for the button hover here, what we want to do is we're going to change the background color. So we'll say background color RGBA. We're going to use the same color here, but we're going to change the alpha to 0.7. And then what we're also going to do is a transform, and we're going to say scale instead of the 1.05. So when we hover over it, it's going to get a little bit larger, and then the background color is going to change to a lighter blue here. All right, next up, we want to target our button individually here, and we're going to say border and set that to none because right now we have this nasty border around that, so that goes ahead and gets rid of that. And then we also want to give it a margin left here of 14 pixels. You're not going to see this really take any effect now, but we'll see that in a second. All right. Now, the next thing we want to do here is currently we still have this choose file present. Now, we don't need this anymore because we're going to be using the upload button to go ahead and click on this and generate the ability to select a photo here, and this doesn't provide us any value anymore. So what we can do is we're going to say, let's see, .file input, and we're going to set this to display and none. All right, so now we're left with just this. So we still need to do a few more things here for the styling. So we're going to say file preview and our paragraph tag. We're going to give this a margin. Let's see, not right. We're going to say margin left to go ahead and separate it from our button here. We're going to say 16 pixels. And then for the font size, you want to go ahead and give it a little bit smaller text. So we're going to say 14. And then what we want to do is for the actual file name, we want to give this a margin left of 4 pixels. All right, you're not going to see that because we currently don't have a file name, which this is going to refer to the span right here. So if I was to put some testing data in here, you'll see that it is going to separate a little bit here from the file, the colon. All right, so let's go ahead and get rid of that. And then I think there's only one more thing we need to do, which is going to be the inactive state, because currently this button shouldn't have any value or shouldn't be able to be clicked because we don't have a photo here. So what we want to do is come down here and say inactive, and we're going to give this a pointer events of none, which will make us not have the ability to click over this or have any effect on it. So you can see when we hover over this now, it doesn't actually do any hovering, but this one still does. Then we want to go ahead and say background color, and we're going to give this an RGB BA value, and it's going to be 128, 128, and then a 50% alpha value here. All right, so now it looks like this. Now, one thing I realize here is that that transition seems a little bit sudden. So let's go ahead and change this to 500 here and see if that makes it look a little better. Yeah, there we go. That looks a lot better. All right, so that is going to be it for our styling. So now we need to actually hook up some JavaScript to go ahead and indicate when we upload a photo here so that the name generates right here, and that we're able to actually preview this because we need to generate a URL to set to our image tag here. So let's go ahead and begin to work on our JavaScript. Now, to get started here, I'm just going to go ahead and copy and paste in some variables that we're going to need to make this functionality work here. So first off, we have our file here, which is referring to our input of our file. Then we have this file name here, which is referring to this span right here of file name. Then we have our image here, which is going to refer to the image tag inside of our modal. Then we have the preview button here, which is referring to this. Then we have our modal itself, which we're getting reference to with the class of modal. And then we have our close button, which is within that modal. Okay, so each time that we click on this photo button here, and we actually open a photo here inside of this input, it's going to fire a event called change. Now we can listen for that event by using a add event listener on our actual file here. So let's go ahead and set that up. So we'll say file.add event listener here, and we want to listen for the change event here. And when we hear that, we want to run a function. And for now, let's just go ahead and console.log this. We'll say console.log, and let's just log out the file here. Okay, so every time we click on this photo and we upload a photo here, you'll see that we're going to console.log the actual file. All right, now this is not what we want to go ahead and do. So we can actually get more information on this file by saying .files, and this comes back as an array. Now we're only going to be uploading one file here, so we want to go ahead and get reference to the first one by passing it the value of 0. So if we go ahead and, well, it already refreshed here, we go ahead and upload a photo now, and we'll say here we're going to get all the information for this photo here. So as you can see, we get access to the name, which is what we're going to use to populate this file name right here. So what we want to do is, I'm just going to copy this for now. We're going to remove this console.log statement here, and we're going to say file name dot inner HTML is going to equal file dot files, and we want the first value of the array of 0, and we're going to say dot name. So now when we upload a photo here, you should see that we're going to generate the file name right beside of this file value right here. And there we go, that is working great. Okay, now the next thing we want to do is we need to create a local value for our photo. Pretty much we need to create a URL for our photo locally to go ahead and insert into this image tag right here in the src value. So how do we go ahead and do that? Well, it's actually pretty easy. So we're going to create a new variable here, and we're going to call this file URL. And we're going to set it equal to URL, and we want to say there is a method called create object URL, and we're simply just going to pass it the file dot files and then that first value of the array. And then what we can do is we can console.log this file URL. So let's try this again. If we upload photo here, you'll see we're going to get this blob, but it has this value right here of a URL, which we can go ahead and insert into our image here. So instead of console.logging this, we can say image, which we're referring to this variable right here, and we can say.src and set that equal to the file URL. Okay. And then once we have this populated, what we want to do is we want to remove this inactive class here on our preview button. So we'll say preview button dot classless, and we want to remove inactive. Okay, so let's go ahead and test this out. So let's go ahead and hit upload photo here. Select the photo. You can see the file name comes in here now, and we now have access to click on this preview button. But as you can see, when we click on the preview button, nothing is happening. So what we need to do now is look for a event listener on our preview button of click, and then when that happens, we want to remove the display none from our modal. So we'll say preview button dot event listener, and we're going to listen for a click, and then we'll run this code when we hear that click, and we're simply going to say modal dot classless dot toggle, not toString, toggle, and we'll say display none. Now, while we're here, let's just go ahead and copy this down because we need to do the same thing for our close button here. So what I'm going to do is get rid of preview here. We'll say close. We want to look for a click, and then we want to retoggle the display none when we click on that X. Okay, so that should do it for our excuse me. So as I was saying, that should go ahead and do it for our JavaScript. So let's go ahead and test this out here. So if we click on upload photo, we should be able to click on our photo here. The name is going to generate right here. And then when we click on preview, we should now see we have access to preview this photo that we just went ahead and uploaded. So if we click on the X button right here, we are able to close that out. And then we can go ahead and choose a new photo. Let's just say number 2 here. And if we want to preview this, you can see we now have that new photo inside of our modal. All right, so that's going to go ahead and do it for our photo previewer. If you guys did enjoy this and learned something new, I would appreciate you guys leaving a like down below and subscribing if you're new for more content like this here on the channel. So anyways, thank you guys again for watching, and I will see you guys in the next project.